Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Tonight we're going to look at H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness, Volume 2, adapted by Go Tanabe. Last episode we looked at the first half of this. I don't know why they split this up into two instead of just making a nice fat collection. But I guess it's the economics or something. So let's continue where we left off. These are nice little books. God, I love the way he draws these mountains. Kind of reminds me of H.R. Geiger. How it's like stone, but almost looks organic. So here's Dyer. We met him last time. So they're planning, they're still planning their rescue expedition. There's the one guy, Gedney, who wasn't accounted for after they found all the corpses at this camp. So he gets in a plane with his assistant Danforth, and they're going to go to the Mountains of Madness and check it out. So now for reals, they're seeing that this is definitely structures made by a sentient mind. For so many pages, I kept thinking, like, who's this guy with the long hair? But it's just his parka, his furry parka. And they come to the proper city here. And now, like, as if their minds weren't already blown, they're just, like, freaking out. Look at this. It's a megalopolis. Just so many pages of just no dialogue. Just them exploring this. And the way Tanabe draws this city. It's fascinating. You don't need much else. And they see those star shapes again of the old ones. Look at the sky. Seems to be a lot more like speckling in here. Kind of pointillism. Just these mammoth structures, just page after page of them flying over it and commenting on it. Dyer decides, even though they're supposed to be looking for Genzi, he's like, this is just too. I'm sorry, Gedney. This is just too much of an archaeological find to not stop. We'll give ourselves 5 hours and explore a little. We have to. If I was Gedney, I'd be pretty pissed. I'd be like, I don't give a shit. Save me first. Find me first, and then we can go back and explore. These structures, you totally get the idea that why they would creep you out. It's just like there's something about them, just they're oozy and just weird. So they land and prepare to explore the place. So now they realize the mirages they saw earlier, where they saw like almost like a city upside down in the sky. Somehow the frost is reflecting the city over the mountain. Once again, almost looks organic. Here too. So every, page after page of them, just everything they stumble upon is more fascinating than the last. These are petrified conifers. Probably petrified for, 20,000 years. Mesozoic conifers. You're seeing more and more similarities, too, between what's in the Necronomicon. They're realizing that some of these things are kind of familiar in a way because they've read about them. They keep finding these star shapes. Look at this edifice. That's impressive. Everything they discover is just a wonder. So now there's no doubt. There was a civilization on Earth, like when we were still monkeys. This high civilization. So Dyer has a sketch pad, and they have a camera, and they're taking as many photos and drawing as many things as they can, sketching out stuff. Remember I was talking about how this book has just this slow creeping dread. And this is just totally slowly building it up. They haven't seen any monsters or anything. But everything they discover is just creepier and creepier. I mean, just the existential implications of this. It would just set your brain reeling. Like we've always thought, man is the top dog in this world. But no, there was a more advanced civilization 10,000 years ago. Whatever, maybe 10 million, I don't know. They find these weird fossils and these sculptures on the wall. Look at this crazy vista. So they're realizing that these bas reliefs in the wall, it's kind of a history of these old ones. It's kind of interesting. Every now and then they just have a paragraph. Just a bit of prose continuing the story. And so now Dyer seems to be reading these things. I guess they're very clear, these, murals. And they talk about how the old ones came to our planet from maybe a different universe even. Look at this amazing sci-fi art. Look at some sharp stuff. So they land in the seas, the Antarctic Sea. When Earth was still forming. There they are, the old ones with their star heads. So once they landed, they set about making this world their own. And now we continue the history lesson. We see them making the city using this far advanced technology. It looks like lasers, cutting the stones, placing them. So basically, they created Earth life. They basically created life so they'd have something to eat. But then they created a vast variety of forms for other reasons. It's beautiful art here. Great illustration. So the height of their creation, well, the dreadful triumph of their creations, was a mass-produced protoplasmic bulk, capable, under the mental commands of their masters, of molding their own tissues into temporary organs to perform specific tasks. So they basically created this slave class. And this is what, in Lovecraftian lore, these became known as shoggoths. And so they not only built these underwater cities, they soon mastered the land as well and built beautiful cities on the land. So these shoggoths can grow to like vast sizes while they're working on buildings and stuff. God, this is amazing. And so they have just a complete advanced society. Living off of the animals that they created. So through various geological upheavals, they survive because their technology is so great. They even could fly. So they were masters of the sea and the land and the air. And it seems like they're, unless they were killed by violence, they were kind of eternal. Talk about building the burial mounds that look like a star, which we saw earlier in the last book. There's strange maps on the wall showing whole continents that don't exist. God, some of this stuff is just, you don't even know what you're looking at, but it's so beautiful, the illustration. So then this another race swept down on Earth from the cosmos and challenged the Old One's dominion over Earth. They kind of look like octopi. And these are kind of like the Cthulhu. So these scenes of the Cthulhu and the Old Ones, their battles, they're just both so amorphous and, kind of nebulous looking that it just looks like abstract art. Like this is a battle scene here, but it's kind of hard to tell exactly what you're looking at. Obviously, we see this giant octopus, this Cthulhu. But so many of these panels, they're showing us scenes from the war, but they just look like, it totally fits. It's like H.P. Lovecraft wanted you, would never overly describe the creatures. He knew your imagination would make it scarier than he could ever describe. So we don't really get a good look. It's all just kind of like this dark, like I said earlier, almost abstract looking shit. Kind of looks like Swamp Thing. So the Cthulhu are driven back by the Old Ones. And they make a treaty, basically. The war's over. They give to the Cthulhu, get to keep the new lands that rose from the ocean. And the Old Ones keep the sea and their older lands. So we see the Cthulhu making their own cities. But then there's a cataclysmic shift in the continents, and all of the Cthulhu's lands sink beneath the sea, like Atlantis. So the old ones are the supreme force on the planet again, and they raise their cities even higher. So a problem arises, though. The Shoggoth, since they're basically susceptible to these mental commands of the old ones, they eventually kind of develop their own consciousness, a semi-stable awareness. It pretty much just echoes the will of the masters, but eventually they stop obeying. And so now there's an uprising. Look how crazy these Shoggoths are. Just these nightmare visions. Here's another war scene where it's just like, what am I looking at? Lots of amorphous blobs. It's like looking at a Sergeant Rock comic. Even though a lot of this is just war. So the old ones marshal their intellect, and they use a new weapon, and they achieve total victory over the Shoggoth. It does seem like these bas-reliefs, or whatever they are, these hieroglyphics, are pretty amazing that they're this clear to Dyer. It's almost like Dyer's looking into the past. He almost seems to have an omniscient knowledge of all of these wars and various things. So now a new invader from outer space arises, or shows up. And they're half crustacean, half fungus. And he ties them to the abominable snowman, even though they look nothing like it. God, just look at this. The imagination to draw that. And we see some more battle scenes where it's just like, what the hell? It looks so good, though. Almost like in a good abstract way. And then the Ice Age comes. Pretty interesting. Here we get a little color signature, kind of showing us what we just saw. Pretty sweet. This black and white art looks so good, but it would kind of be nice if it could all look like this. So they continue exploring, just finding around every corner, finding new wonders or terrors. So Dyer is so fascinated by all this shit. He basically just says, Gedney's going to have to wait. We got to keep exploring. This is just too mind-blowing and fascinating. Danforth brings up the point that there could still be intelligent life here. And for some reason, Dyer is just like, oh, that's ludicrous. It's beyond possibility. And it's like, well, who do you think took the guys in the party and killed them? You know it wasn't a snowstorm. So I don't know why he's being so resistant to this theory. So they're kind of bickering about it. And they're following these sled tracks. And as they keep following them, they find some detritus from the camp. Some of that canned food, a giant battery. Its exteriors are just so awe-inspiring. They find the wreck sled and the generator, which the aliens took, the old ones. And Danforth is still doubting it. He's like, how could Gedney carry these two sleds here by himself? Even though it's so glaringly obvious that the old ones took him, and took everyone else and killed them. And then took all this crap. And then finally, they stumble upon Gedney. He's under this, like, kind of tarp. And Gedney's dead. It seems like they performed an autopsy on him, some kind of vivisection, and he's patched up in a kind of weird way. They find a dog, too, in the same condition. And then all of a sudden, they start hearing this skeech coming from this passage. It turns out it's just penguins. At least it sounds like penguins. These double page spreads are something else. It's weird that some of his art, it almost looks like Edward Gorey in Overdrive. Just the line work and the shading. Just so much amount of lines. And then they find the penguins. They're these giant albino penguins over 6 feet tall. Kind of weird, because they're not very scary. But, I don't know, just something, the one monster they run into, if you will. They're not really, they're just these kind of harmless, giant albino penguins. The penguins don't even seem interested in their presence. They smell this horrible musk, and they recognize it as the elder one's stench. They find more gear from the expedition. Look at that. So just like repulsive. More weird shit. It's finally Dyer can't deny that there's maybe some aliens who are alive. So they find one of the elder things. So they find some more corpses of these elders, and they're examining them. They're decapitated, these corpses. They suspect that maybe the Shoggoths beheaded them, killed them and took off their heads. And then they round this corner and they see this. And it's this voice going, Tekalili, Tekalili. And they turn around to flee. And they, basically the elder things are chasing them, even though we still don't really see them. So they're running for the corridor, past the penguins, trying to find an exit. Oh man, look at that. That's the Shoggoth. They're just pretty much like blobs. He's so good at drawing this like viscous globiness. Oh man, what a horrifying vision. It's like all these floating eyes within the Shoggoth. And then it's so weird, the Shoggoth repeats something. He says Edgar Allan Poe wrote that word in the narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym. It was no fiction, it's no drunken fancy, just a terrible echo somehow perceived. Heard otherwise by blind birds, as pale as the ancient snow. He's talking about the albino penguins. And then it says Tekalili, Tekalili. Man, that's impressive. So I think this is part of the Lovecraftian mythos. Supposedly this word is just like this horrifying word. Just hearing it, these guys are wigged out. And then now we're finally in like a real, like monster story. We see the Shoggoth blobbing away after our two heroes. And they're running through the corridors, trying to find the one that leads to the outside. It's kind of a labyrinth down there, so they're kind of lost. And the Shoggoth, as we can see, is hot on their heels. They go through this corridor, a mausoleum of the elder ones, the old ones. Man, there's something so repulsive about them, the way he draws them. Like the slick, leathery hide. So this goes on for page after page. I'm just trying to run down these corridors, trying to find a way out. And they finally do. And they have to crawl down this mountain. Another amazing vista there. So they make it back to the landing site, where all the ruins are, and luckily the plane is still operational. They get in the plane and take off. Finally, their nightmare is over. Or so you would think. So it seems very weird, and this seems very Lovecraftian, how we don't even see the thing that Danforth sees that basically drives him crazy. So Dyer is manning the controls of the plane, and he's asking for Danforth to come over and help, and Danforth isn't responding. Danforth is just staring at the window. And, I guess just thinking about this city would drive someone crazy. But, he's seen it all in the past 6 hours. He hasn't said anything. And just looking out the window, he screams. This blood-curdling scream. And Dyer's too busy trying not to crash into the mountain to really notice anything or do any more help. Finally, he looks back at Danforth, and Danforth is not in good shape. He's doubled over, just muttering, "The mirage, mirage." He looks pretty crazy. He's lost it. The menace of these elder ones is so intense that this getaway is really like kind of thrilling. I was just like, yeah, get in the plane, get out of there. Just like when you watch a horror movie and you're yelling at the screen for people to do stuff. So now we go back to the expedition, the primary expedition, and they refuse to leave until Dyer gets there. So the leader, I can't remember his name right now. Oh, Professor Pabodi, the engineer. And he says, we're going to wait till morning. We're going to give him a chance. And just then they show up in their plane. They got him down with some smoky flares. And basically, Danforth and the professor made a deal. They're like, we can never tell anyone about this. Dyer swears him to secrecy. And it looks like Danforth is gone. His mind is snapped. And so they just are like, let's get the hell out of here. We see like more examples of just all this nastiness, and they finally get on the ship and leave. Dyer says, I thank heaven that we are clear of her. Speaking of Antarctica. You can totally imagine his relief as he pulls away. So now we're in Arkham at the Miskatonic University. Everyone's made it home safe. Well, everyone who survived. And the professor is... God, I keep forgetting his name. Sorry, guys, I had to take some cough syrup. I'm a little loopy right now. Dyer. Dyer is thinking about how he still doesn't even know what Danforth saw that drove him crazy. And, typical Lovecraftian fashion, he doesn't show us what he saw. We don't even know what he saw. But our imaginations fill in the rest and fill in the blanks, and it's something really terrible. He reads in the paper that another expedition is going to go to Antarctica and duplicate their thing. And he's like sending letters, basically just saying no, because he doesn't want to awaken any of these elder gods. He knows that life on Earth would be over, human life. They'd kill us all. He goes to visit Danforth in the mental institution, and he's just yelling out all this stuff, which is a lot of it's from Lovecraftian lore. Black pit, the carven rim, windowless solids with 5 dimensions, primal white jelly, proto-shuggoth, the color out of space, Yog Suggoth. And then he says, Tekalili. So he goes back to Miskatonic. He's in the library, checking out the Necronomicon. He mentions that Danforth was one of the few kids who read the whole thing. So maybe his getting a little spare is a delayed reaction to that. But I don't think so. I think it's what he saw, which we don't even know. More of this almost abstracted craziness. And then it's interesting. He's thinking about the old ones. And he basically says that they're no different than us humans. We would do the same thing. Imagine you wake from the slumber and these furry quadrupeds, talking about the dogs, are like barking at you. And these strange hairless apes are all buzzing around. Because there is advance to us as we are to, I don't know, monkeys or something. Maybe even more so. And he ends it with saying, it would have been less fearful had nothing remained of the old ones but their profound silences, the sprawling record of their race, forever mute in carven stone. It was a horror that a single screamed word of their voices had survived, echoing through unthinkable time, distorted and mocked and mocking. Tekalili, Tekalili. And that's the end of At the Mountains of Madness. Hope you guys enjoyed looking at this with me. Like I said, this is the second of 2 videos. So hopefully you saw yesterday's video before this, because it wouldn't make much sense. But I gotta say, man, I never heard of Tanabe before this. Never saw his work. Tanabe, sorry. And man, what a craftsman. This art's just mind-bending how detailed it is. And I can't even imagine how long it takes him to draw these. So that's it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time here at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.